When two variables are related, we can use mathematical rules to describe the relationship. The simplest kind of relationship forms a straight line graph, and the rule is called a linear equation. So the two key words there are a linear equation and it's a straight line graph. So let's see what that looks like. For example, if we have a swimming pool and it's filled at 1,000 litres per hour, the relationship between the volume and the time, the two variables, volume and time, is linear because the volume is increasing at a constant rate of 1,000 litres per hour. Now, that's nicely expressed in a formula. So mathematically, we can write it like the following, that the volume is equal to 1,000 times the number of hours. This can then be represented as a graph, such as the following, wherein we can see that when we first started, we had no volume because there was no time elapsed. And as time does elapse, after 1 hour, we get 1,000 litres. After 2 hours, so there's 2 hours, we have 2,000 litres, and so on. After 4 hours, we're going to have 4,000 litres. 5 hours, 5,000 litres. So this is called a linear graph and a linear relationship because it forms a straight line when we graph it. Now, when we do have two variables with a linear relationship, we know we can represent them as a straight line graph, and the information about one of those variables, based on information about the other, is easily determined by reading from the graph. So in other words, from this situation where we have three people and they're travelling, and we can find out information about how long it takes them to go a certain distance or how far they travel in a certain amount of time. So for example, Alice, Bethany and Carol are the three people we're talking about. They're travelling. How long does it take each person to travel a distance of 20 kilometres? Well, there's 20 kilometres along the distance side. So 20 kilometres takes Alice, this blue line, 1 hour. Bethany, she starts here, and it takes her 2 hours to go 20 kilometres. And for Carol, again, 20 kilometres all the way over there to Carol, 3 hours. There are two things that we can do with reading off a graph. Information can be found from reading within a graph, which is called interpolation, which means that I have this whole section of the graph here, and so as a result I can read off values anywhere along here. That's called interpolation. Or I can extend the graph and consider what would happen if this relationship was to continue in the same way. And then I can read off values that are not actually drawn on the graph. So let's look at an example. First of all, how far does Bethany, B, travel in 1 hour? So there is B. There is 1 hour. So we go across to 1 hour, up to the B line, and then across to work out the distance. And we can estimate that as being 10. We can recognise that's exactly half of that anyway. So it's exactly 10 kilometres. Extrapolation looks at an extended version of the graph. So for example, how far does Alice, A, travel in 2 hours? This graph doesn't go that far, but we can look at what happens if I was to continue that to go for 2 hours. I could get a line and a ruler and draw it. And I can see that at 2 hours time, it is about here. Moving across to the side there, I can see that that looks like it's double. And so it turns out to be 40 kilometres.